Hi, I'm a frickin' nutcase. I thought today I'd do a little bit of a video on why I ended up purchasing this Yamaha XT250. I basically bought this for commuting and for bopping around town, and I thought maybe it'd be interesting to see how I actually ended up with this particular bike. The ST video bike on the purchase decision was actually turned out to be quite popular, so I figured a similar video on the 250 would probably be a good choice. Last fall, when I traded in the V-Strom on the ST, I knew that I was probably going to be losing in a few areas, and one was going to be obviously any ability to do gravel and sort of unimproved roads, and the other area I was going to be definitely losing in was going to be around town. Just the size and the weight of the ST make it a little bit more of a handful around town. So I said, well, what I really need is a commuting bike. And that got me thinking, especially over the winter. When I put the ST away for the winter, there were a couple of more days scattered throughout the wintertime period, especially even we had a heck of a nice January thaw here, where I could have ridden, but with the bike safely stashed away, that wasn't going to happen. So I also wanted a bike I could ride through the winter, sort of a winter bike. I don't necessarily want to call it a winter beater, but a winter bike. So off we go. Time to do some online research and talk to some friends and family that ride and get some ideas. And one of the things that came up is maybe I should look at a scooter. I didn't necessarily want a 50cc putt around town scooter. I wanted something with maybe a little bit more oomph to it. I have had the opportunity to ride a Vespa. I think it was a 50 or a 60 or something like that in Paris a few years ago, and had a great time pumping around town. But that's kind of okay in a purely urban environment. But as you can see by this video, I'm kind of in a suburban, semi-rural area pretty quickly when I ride, and it's kind of a great area to ride. And I didn't think a Vespa, at least the 50cc version, would be a good choice. So that sort of had me starting to look at the next size up scooters, and there were a few Vespas. I think there were 125s around, and Honda and Yamaha, and I even think Suzuki make a couple of 125 or 150 scooters. One of the things that most of these had was pretty small wheels, and well, this is Canada, and on a good day our roads are best to be considered shite. On a bad day, they're barely frickin' passable. They're almost, you need a dual sport. And that kind of got me thinking. I said, well, what's sort of out there for small, so let's say 125 to 250cc dual sport bikes? And I started looking, and I found that just about all the manufacturers make something in that range of a dual sport. So this spring, as the motorcycle shows came around, I sort of went with them with a bit of a mission. And I said, let's see what's out there. Let's get a look at, a feel on, a sit on these dual sports. And if you watched any of my videos, you'll probably know by now I'm not the tallest of guys. And my inseam is sitting right in about the, let's say, 28, 29 inches. And as a result of this, I found a lot of the dual sports that are out there very tall. And for commuting, tall isn't necessarily a good thing. So I put my criteria together. I said I had to be able to flat-foot it, or damn near flat-foot it at least, so that commuting and bopping around in rough roads wouldn't result in a drop. I guess I run out of road here. Let's see where this goes. I haven't been down here in a long while. Yeah, it wasn't my best U-turn ever, but better than my recent one on dirt with the ST that didn't turn out all that well. So yeah, I knew I had to be able to flat-foot it. I wanted something that was really good on gas. I mean, that's part of the raison d'etre for a commuting bike. So good on gas, had to be able to flat-foot it. Yeah, I guess I wanted something with knobby tires. Because I wanted to be able to hit those gravel roads that I come to from time to time. A couple weeks ago I was out on the ST for a day trip, and I probably had to turn around from 3 or 4 gravel roads. Not that I don't want to say I'm afraid of gravel on the ST. I've done a couple of gravel roads on it, and it just wasn't enjoyable, especially if you get into some deep gravel. That's not a bike for that. So I've sort of been shying away from them, and decided I really wanted to put gravel roads in my mix. You can get to some really neat and interesting places, especially in Canada, if you're willing to do a bit of gravel roading. So I started sitting on the bikes and touring the motorcycle dealers as well as at the motorcycle show. And there was a Kawasaki, I think a KLX 250. Yeah, I guess if it was 6 feet with a 32 plus inch inseam, that would have been great. There was the WR 250 from Yamaha. Again, same thing. Inseam, challenged like me. Not going to be the instant comfortable wobbling around on that at stoplights and off-road. So it really kind of narrowed down to if I was looking for a 250cc dual sport, this Yamaha XT250 and the Honda. The Honda was supposed to have a little bit lower seat height than some of those other two. Well, I managed to actually sit on a Honda at one of the shows, and while it definitely was a little lower than the WR 250R, yeah, it still wasn't what I would call a low seat height. In fact, without doing the sort of motocross mounting where no kickstand, just grab the bars, swing a leg over it, and away you go, I even found getting one foot down a bit of a challenge. And I'm thinking, all right, I want to try and ride this in inclement weather, so you're going to have wet, you're going to have gravelly, you're going to go early and late season. I'm not sure what sort of footing I get. I don't want to be dangling all the bike off 1 foot all the time just to get stable. So that really left this bike, the XT250. So I sat and I thought, okay, what else is out there? I looked at the used market and didn't find a lot of these. And I also said, what about some of these scooters? And as I mentioned earlier, they all seem to have at least the non-maxi scooters. The big Bergman and the Silverwing have 14 and 15-inch tires. But everything else seems to be fairly small wheels. And that sort of concerned me in terms of just ride quality and handling on some of our rougher roads. So I sort of sat down and started going to some of the dealers and talking to some of the dealers. And much as I found with my buying experience with the V-Strom and with the ST, that there are some pretty, I don't want to use the word shady, but let's just say dealers that make me uncomfortable. I don't think they're doing anything illegal or wrong. It's just that their business approach and their tactics, sort of the high-pressure sales or sort of the sleazy slime ball. So once again, it sort of came down to the dealer. And I bought this Yamaha from the local dealer in my hometown. And he's just a little guy trying to make a living, and I've always enjoyed supporting the little guy. So yeah, this was the little guy trying to make a living, and I probably went in there, I'm going to say, a month and a half or 2 months ago, and saw this bike. And he had a couple of others. He had a WR, and he actually had a TW200 as well, which really wasn't on my list. That thing really looked like it was an off-road bike, or that's about it. Not really suitable for commuting. And I had a chat with him, and I got a good feeling from the sales staff. And the bikes were priced basically, there's the sticker, that's your price. And that was fairly early in the season, and I can sort of understand that. That's, they want to get their maximum sales out first thing in the spring. So I started digging around a few of the other dealers, and found that a few of them were around. There were a few with leftover 2009s, but they really weren't all that willing to deal, which was sort of unfortunate. I sort of figured on a 2009 or 2011, I think one of them was, leftover, I'd be able to get a better deal than I did. But I guess, again, the time of the year here in Canada, when spring comes, bike prices go up. So I sort of forgot about it for a while and was out riding the ST and just really having a great time on it. Last couple of weeks I've been commuting to work, and the heat on the ST in stop-and-go traffic, my commute isn't all that long, but by the time I get to work, yeah, I'm bien cuit, as we would say in Quebec. So that got me once again thinking about, lightweight, easy to maintain, cool bikes for commuting. And this got me right back to this XT250. So I did around a little digging on Kijiji, Craigslist, our sort of local classifieds for bikes, and didn't find too many that were reasonable. There were quite a few people that had them for sale, but they kind of wanted them at the price of gold. In fact, most of them were asking, I only have 1,000 kilometers on mine, or 1,800 kilometers. I want, $500 below MSRP. Well, in Ontario, when you go out and register a bike, you've got to pay the tax, even on a used bike, to the government when you register the bike. So there's no way of avoiding the tax. There are a couple of cheating ways to do it, but nope, we don't cheat. Play fair is the only way. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to avoid the tax, so $500 off MSRP, or $1,000 even off MSRP, you throw the taxes and stuff in, well, yeah, you got no warranty, you don't know if the bike was thrashed, maintained, most of them had sat for a while, even with low kilometers. So I went back into the Yamaha dealer one day on lunch, just because I've been having a bit of a rough morning at work and just wanted to change the pace, kind of close to work. And lo and behold, they still had this XT. They'd sold the WR, and they'd also sold the other off-road bike, the TW250 they had. And I said, oh, you've obviously had a good spring in the deal. I said, yeah, it wasn't too bad. Things seem to be picking up a bit. I said, willing to make me a deal on that XT? And he said, well, we can't really wiggle a whole lot. And, I didn't expect him to drop out and say, you could have it for $50. So after looking around, I had a good idea what these were going for used, which, as far as I'm concerned, even if I got them for $500 or so less than what they were asking, was still a rip-off for a used bike. So I said, well, I'm going to take a chance here. I'm going to make him a reasonable offer, and I did. I offered him MSRP out the door. So all taxes, fees, OMVIC fee, tire tax, penalty for being a motorcyclist in Ontario tax, whatever you want to call it. Everything in, and I'm riding the door. And he kind of looked at me and he says, will this be cash or credit? And I go, people actually buy a motorcycle on a credit card? Because you'd be surprised. I said, no, this will be a cash deal. I mean, these things aren't that expensive, and I'd saved up a little bit. And he says, okay, done. And I was going like, whoa, all right, this is going to be good. So that was a pretty good process. I picked it up yesterday. I've been out riding it and breaking her in. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. The seat seems to be the only downside. It's definitely not as comfortable as the ST or even the V-Strom was. It's a kind of a more narrow seat. That in mind, a lot of the other bikes I was looking at had more of, I think I read it online, a butt floss, sort of narrow little seat. Some of the KTMs and that sort of stuff, and even the WRs have a pretty narrow seat, more of a motocross style seat. So that would have been really uncomfortable. I suppose my tushy will get used to it, just like about everything in this life. You can get used to quite a bit. So yeah, that was sort of my buying and purchasing history and experience with this Yamaha XT250. I'm so far really enjoying it. It was a good buying purchase, a good dealer if you're local to the Oakville area. Try our local dealers. I'm a frickin' nutcase.